This week on the show, Etsy talks tariffs, eBay updates their user agreement, and I sell a whole bunch of books. What is up, Galaxians? Welcome to episode number 293 of the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. My name is Ryan, and I will be your host. We've got about a half a dozen, maybe, news things to cover, a couple of updates from Etsy as they kind of lean into and offer some protection to sellers from tariffs. eBay made some updates to their user agreement, which we should probably discuss. Although, to be fair, you don't have a ton of options with what you can do. You can either cease to use the site or go along with them, but we'll cover them nonetheless. And then at the back end of the show, I've got a pretty interesting What Sold recap with some really pretty big sales over there. So you'll want to stick around for that. There will be timestamps, chapter markers in the show notes and the video description down below if you want to go to a particular segment. But now, let's do this reselling news.
News updates.
We are going to start with Etsy, who made a couple of announcements this week regarding the situation that's going on with tariffs. So there are a lot of international sellers on Etsy, sellers outside the US shipping into the US, and of course, vice versa. And Etsy is now offering some advice and some protection for sellers who are in that kind of international shipping situation. So Etsy has offered advice to sellers. This article appears over on e-commerce bites. And of course, these will be linked in the show notes and the video description down below as well. Etsy offered advice to sellers on dealing with tariffs and told them that buyers may be required to pay tariffs and fees on packages that are shipped internationally. The marketplace explained that in certain cases, it would protect sellers if buyers refused to pay tariffs when their orders arrived. In the article posted to their seller handbook on April 7th, Etsy included the following section explaining the protection it was extending to sellers, fortifying purchase protection. They said, to help your business as shoppers navigate tariffs, we are clarifying the eligibility criteria for the Purchase Protection Program. Qualified sellers will not be responsible for refunds if an item arrives late or is not received due to a buyer delay, inability, or unwillingness to pay tariffs due when their order arrives. You can learn more about the Etsy Purchase Protection here. If you're on their actual blog, there would be a link to further information. Etsy said it was also working to add messaging so buyers could be alerted to instances when purchases might be subject to tariffs or might be delayed as a result of those tariffs. They told sellers in an FAQ section that sellers could choose which countries they ship to and had the ability to choose to ship to domestic customers only. So if you want to avoid this potential problem altogether, you can update your settings to just ship within your country. I don't know that we probably really want to do that, but it is an option that's available for you. Other FAQs included, does Etsy have the ability to collect and remit tariffs like you do with value-added taxes? And does my shipping carrier include the cost of tariffs in their rates? Government policy around tariffs continues to change at a rapid pace, seemingly almost by the day, and Etsy continues to update the Seller Central article. There is a link to that article here. If you want to go read more details and you're a seller on Etsy, you can do that. This is going to be a challenge for sellers to navigate and, to be frank, for buyers to navigate as well, knowing which items may or may not be subject to tariffs, what those tariffs may or may not be in any given week. The tariff may be different when you make the purchase than from when the item actually arrives. This is a fairly messy situation, but kudos to Etsy for at least trying to get out in front of it and offering some protection to their sellers. They are also very strongly leaning in on local sellers to kind of quell the whole tariff fear phenomenon. So this kind of relates to the previous thing, encouraging sellers and buyers to participate in Etsy locally rather than looking out internationally. As tariffs, this article appears over on a value-added resource. As tariffs raise concerns about supply chains and rising prices, Etsy is leaning into its network of local sellers to boost user and investor, importantly, sentiment. The CEO, Josh Silverman, addressed the issue in a company blog post explaining that Etsy is helping buyers, quote, shop with confidence, unquote, and empowering sellers to manage their businesses with as little disruption as possible during turbulent times. He said, quote, we know that the recent shifts in trade policies and tariffs between the U.S. and many countries around the world have raised questions about global supply chains, pricing, and the general availability of goods, he said. As these changes unfold, we remain committed to delivering a seamless experience. He said that he felt Etsy was uniquely positioned to meet shoppers in this moment with millions of special items from sellers, importantly, in their country, giving examples of more than 60 million items that ship domestically in the United States, as well as over 800,000 sellers in the UK, 300,000 in Canada and Germany, and 100,000 in France. Again, focusing on trying to get people to buy local while buying through Etsy to avoid any tariff shenanigans, as it were. To make shopping domestic even easier, Etsy is now surfacing new ways for buyers to discover businesses in their countries across the website and app with what they call curated shopping pages, local seller spotlights, and more. If you're watching on YouTube, there are some examples of what that looks like. This will be available both on desktop and apparently on the app. So, again, kudos to Etsy for trying to be at least out front of this issue and to highlight sellers in a potential buyer's local country to help eliminate the guesswork about tariffs altogether. Now for probably the biggest news of the week. eBay announced some user agreement updates that go into effect in May of this year. There are new arbitration terms and new limits on lawsuits. This is a really, really lengthy article. There are a bunch of changes, most of which have to do with the legal aspect. Most of these companies are making changes to their arbitration terms to try to keep things out of the courts and in arbitration because it is, in theory, at least simpler and less expensive for them. eBay released this update to the user agreement with these changes, and it goes into effect May 16th. The following summary of changes was provided in an email, which, if you're an eBay seller, you have probably already received. We've updated eBay's user agreement, including the agreement to arbitrate any disputes you may have with us. Our updated user agreement was posted on April 16th for users who agreed to a prior version of our user agreement. This agreement is effective as of May 16th, 2025. The agreement to arbitrate in the updated user agreement, with limited exceptions, requires you and eBay to submit disputes to binding arbitration. Below is a summary of the key changes. We changed the designated arbitration provider to National Arbitration and Mediation. My guess would be that this is probably one of the primary drivers of all of the following changes that came about. This new arbitration provider has probably advised eBay to make these updates as part of the use of their service. So I'm just reading the tea leaves here, but that would be my guess, is that that's what's caused all of these now downstream changes. We updated the arbitration procedures to make them more efficient when substantially similar arbitration requests are filed by multiple users. We'll get into that here in a little more depth in a moment. And we revised the process for you to opt out of the agreement to arbitrate. As always, sellers are encouraged to read the entire updated terms carefully. There is a link in this article, but value-added resource. And Liz have you covered with a side-by-side comparison highlighting some of the key changes. We're going to run through some of these. I'm not going to cover all of them. Again, this article will be linked as well. So if you want to go read all of the details, because again, it is a very, very lengthy number of changes. To be fair, most of which will never affect probably 99.99% of users who, while you may have occasional issues with eBay, do not rise to the level of considering legal action or pursuing arbitration. So I don't know that these are in the day-to-day operation of your business that big of a deal, but they are things that you should be aware of. Liz's disclaimer: comparisons are made using both automated and manual methods and are provided for informational purposes only. No warranty of completeness or accuracy is expressed or implied, and users are advised to do their own due diligence. I echo those sentiments. I'm gonna read and paraphrase some of this, but if you really want to dig into the details, I strongly encourage you to click that link and read the entire updated terms. First, as the summary calls out, eBay's changing their designated provider to National Arbitration and Mediation, hereafter referred to as NAM, and that all disputes will be handled according to the NAM rules. Hence my guesstimate that this is the primary driver of all of these changes, is that these are things that NAM wants in place. Importantly, under this new version of the agreement, eBay users are now required to explicitly waive their right to a jury trial for disputes. In the old version, it said if you do not opt out, you will only be permitted to pursue claims against us or our agents on an individual basis, not as a plaintiff or class member in any class or representative action or proceeding. And two, you will only be permitted to seek relief, including monetary, injunctive, and injunctive, easy for me to say, and declaratory relief on an individual basis. The new system, the new version rather, says if you do not opt out, you will only be permitted to pursue claims against us or related third parties, which I assume refers to advertising partners. Facebook Marketplace, for instance, would probably be one, not as a plaintiff or class member, et cetera, and so on. And they have added a third section. You are waiving your right to pursue disputes or claims and seek relief in a court of law and to have a jury trial. So essentially, if you have a problem with eBay, effective in May, your only recourse is going to be arbitration. Further down in the policy, they've added a new section specifically about the waiver of jury trial rights, just to be very specific about it. I won't read that to you. I think it suffices to know that that is no longer going to be an option for you. They also added an entirely new section governing vehicle sales tied to their recent acquisition of the car auction site Caramel, which we talked about a couple of months ago. This section, again, is very lengthy. Liz did not copy and paste the entire text, and I'm not even going to read everything that she did post in this article. Again, if you're thinking about buying or selling a car through eBay, you probably want to review this. Some important points. eBay states that they are not a vehicle broker, vehicle dealer, or an agent acting on behalf of vehicle brokers, dealers, buyers, or sellers. eBay does not maintain an inventory of vehicles for sale and does not sell, exchange, buy, offer for sale, negotiate, or attempt to negotiate sales or exchanges of an interest in any vehicle listed on eBay sites. They really don't want to be thought of as selling these cars. You agree that any reliance on vehicle information on eBay sites is at your own risk? Any discrepancies or mistakes made regarding vehicle availability, quality, safety, condition, pricing, financing, insurance, and the like are not the fault or responsibility of eBay. Neither the accuracy of vehicle information provided on eBay.com nor the availability, quality, or safety of vehicles is guaranteed by eBay. The purchase of a vehicle encompasses multiple disciplines, and eBay is not an expert on such matters such as vehicle market valuation, laws relating to vehicles, taxes relating to vehicles, vehicle financing, vehicle registration, vehicle insurance, vehicle condition, safety, and inspections, or vehicle mechanical fitness and engineering. Maybe they shouldn't be in the car business. Let me know in the comments if that's too hot to take. Why? I mean, I know why. It's a hugely lucrative piece of their business. The automotive parts and accessories piece of their business is one of their largest revenue generators. Adding another firm to help them process actual automobile transactions is probably a potentially very, very lucrative opportunity for them, but they really don't want to be held responsible for anything that goes on with the purchase of a vehicle through eBay. For my part, I would not do it, but that's just me. Let me know in the comments down below. Would you buy or sell a vehicle on eBay? And if you have in the past bought or sold a vehicle on eBay, how was the process? How did it work out? They have added a clause for informal dispute resolution, which requires users to submit to an informal dispute resolution, which is a 45-day cooling off period before arbitration can even begin. So if you have a problem and you want to go to arbitration, once you've kind of indicated that you have to go through now this informal dispute resolution process, which lasts 45 days. They say they are committed to working with you to reach a prompt, low cost, and mutually reasonable resolution, hence this cooling off period where they will have an informal discussion without going to the arbitrator. You and eBay agree to participate in good faith in formal efforts to resolve disputes before starting an arbitration or initiating an action in small claims court. To initiate informal dispute resolution, a party must give notice to the other party in writing in a valid notice of dispute, which may be downloaded. And there's a link again in this article. eBay will send any notice to you to the physical address we have on file associated with your eBay account. To be valid, you must personally sign said notice and complete all information on the form, including a description of the claims you are asserting, the specific relief sought, and the username, email address, and phone number associated with your account. The process lasts 45 days and is a mandatory precondition to commencing arbitration. So remember that. eBay has also added a section on confidentiality, which states that all materials exchanged during arbitration are not to be shared outside of the party's attorneys, accountants, or business advisors. I suppose that probably makes good sense, but subject to the NAM rules, the arbitrator may direct a limited and reasonable exchange of information between the parties consistent with the expedited nature of the arbitration. You and eBay agree that all materials and documents exchanged during the arbitration proceedings shall be kept confidential and shall not be shared with anyone except, again, the party's attorneys, accountants, or business advisors, and shall be subject to the condition that they agree to keep all materials and documents exchanged during the arbitration proceedings confidential. Don't send them to Liz or me or the Steiners over at e-commerce bites. They've got to remain confidential. eBay's really big on the confidentiality stuff. We've talked in the past about their use of NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, when they are partnering with sellers to participate in kind of trial programs or in meetings with their executives. So eBay really, really loves this confidentiality thing. They don't want this information getting out into the wild, much like they don't want to be responsible for listings of cars and so on. Liz continues, there's already a troubling history, as I just mentioned, of eBay requiring these NDAs as a condition of participation in certain programs. So fees and costs, they added another section there, introduces new terms which may disadvantage individual claimants, and the introduction of sanctions for filing frivolous claims. So if you're going to file a claim, make sure it's a legitimate one that you would expect to have a reasonable chance to get to arbitration, because if it's deemed to be frivolous, you may be fined the value of the relief. If you complied with the informal dispute resolution requirements in Section 1, and the value of relief sought in the dispute is $10,000 or less, at your request, eBay will pay all filing, administration, and arbitrator fees associated with said arbitration. The party shall bear their own attorney fees and costs in arbitration unless the arbitrator finds that either the substance of the dispute or the relief sought in the demand was frivolous or was brought for an improper purpose, as measured by the standards set forth in the Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 11B, to the extent following a presentation on the merits on its own motion or a party's. This legal mumbo jumbo makes my head spin. And after affording a reasonable opportunity to respond, an arbitrator determines that the party who commenced arbitration did not bring its claims consistent with counsel's certification and the standards set forth in the above mentioned rule, the arbitrator, as part of its award, may impose sanctions by ordering that the initiating party reimburse the responding party for all arbitration costs and arbitrator's fees the responding party incurred under the fee schedule. So make sure you've got all your ducks in a row. They also talk about a new term, batch arbitration, where similar individual demands are going to be grouped together with a single arbiter assigned to review those and then to make a decision for the entire batch at once. So if you and I and 3 or 4 or 5 other people all have the same issue, our issues will not be resolved individually. They are reserving the right to batch all of us together because our situations are so similar, and have one arbitrator deal with those. The downside, as Liz points out, is that it significantly reduces the transparency and visibility into the details of any one of our specific individual claims. So Again, I would expect that in a lot of cases, this is where this will end up because a lot of the situations that happen on eBay that might eventually lead to requiring arbitration generally are not happening to just one person. They're happening to groups of people. So I would expect that batch arbitration will probably be fairly common. Again, there's a pretty lengthy description of what that process looks like, which I will not read here in the essence of brevity and keep this thing reasonably short. Taken in total, Liz concludes the intent of the update is clear. eBay is absolutely looking to limit users' ability to make legal claims against the company and to dissuade users from exercising their legal rights by mandating a complicated and potentially expensive arbitration process. They are stacking the deck in their favor, which I guess is probably to be expected. You can opt out of arbitration. You do have to file a form, an opt out form, which you then have to mail in to eBay to opt out. It says you can choose to opt out of this agreement to arbitrate by mailing us a written opt out notice. The opt out notice must be postmarked no later than the effective date of the amendment or 30 days from the date you first accept this user agreement. You must mail it to eBay with a specific address. For your convenience, they are providing the opt out notice form. And again, there is a link to that. You have to sign it for it to be effective, and it will only be effective if you send it yourself on an individual basis. Opt out notices from any third party purporting to act on your behalf will have no effect on your or eBay's rights. This is the only way you can opt out of this agreement to arbitrate. So if you do not do this, your only other option would be to leave eBay entirely and not participate on the platform as either a buyer or seller. So pretty dry stuff. Probably doesn't affect most of us in any significant way, but anytime they make a change in user agreement, it's probably important to at least consider what you want to do and know about it. I would think particularly the changes regarding the purchase or sale of automobiles is something that a fairly significant number of sellers would want to be aware of. So let me know what you think of all that. If you're still with me, you're a trooper. eBay had a whole mess of problems last week, and we're not going to get into all of them. Other than to mention briefly, there was a period of a few hours where search was once again not working properly, particularly if you were in your sold items summaries, you couldn't find anything. There were some other issues with messaging. It was not a great week, but they also had an interesting thing happen. Sellers fear eBay, Facebook Marketplace listings may increase item not as described claims due to erroneous AI summaries. This is a really interesting one. Users are starting to see finally those eBay, Facebook Marketplace mashups in the wild, but erroneous item details added by eBay AI description summaries raise serious questions about the liability for false advertising and seller protection for those INAD claims. We've talked about this integration before, allowing the two competing platforms to both access Facebook Marketplace. Started back in January, designed to partially appease regulators in both the US and the EU. Originally, this was supposed to start some time ago. No one has really seen very many ads until very, very recently, but they have started to come out, and there are some concerns about what those ads look like. Previously, all we had really seen was mock-ups, but now we're starting to see some in the wild. How am I protected from bad buyer behavior or situations outside of my control for listings sold through Facebook Marketplace? Because these transactions will be handled completely through eBay, eBay says you'll receive the same protections that you used to as an eBay seller, including protections against negative feedback. But will that cover item not as described claims resulting from eBay's use of AI to provide a summarized version of the description for this Facebook listing, even if that summary contains incorrect information that is not actually even included in the seller's description? This is interesting. A value-added resource reader named Patricia found an eBay Facebook Marketplace listing in the wild and was concerned about the fact that the description is credited to eBay.ai, which appears to have hallucinated details not actually provided by the seller. She said on X, just saw a Facebook Marketplace placement of an eBay listing, said the description was summarized by eBay AI. Went to that listing on eBay and see that the description included items in its description not listed on the actual eBay listing. Title, item specifics, or description. WTF, eBay. She was kind enough to provide screenshots showing what was on there. The icon and the buttons indicate this is a Facebook Marketplace partner listing, and the checkout process will be completed on eBay, just like the mockups that had been presented by both companies showed. It's also interesting, the note says Facebook may receive a commission on this sale. So eBay may be paying. They may be paying for clicks. They may be doing a promoted listing general campaign where the payment is only made if a sale is made. I don't know. They have not been very transparent about what the actual financial arrangement is between these two. That all, however, falls in line with Facebook's announcement that after an initial free period, marketplace partners using this product will have to pay for the ads, probably on a cost per click basis, which could mean, of course, that that cost could eventually be passed on to us, eBay sellers. Interesting. eBay's not really talked about that very much, but there you go. This example, again, shows a disclaimer from eBay saying that the description is from a summary and is provided by eBay AI. But this is where the problem comes in. The item in question, if you're watching on YouTube, you can probably see here on the screen, is a vintage estate sale barn find, 50s fishing tackle, toolbox, and crafts. The description generated by the eBay AI for the Facebook ad says 25 racing decal grab bag. That's not even close. And that could really be a problem. I would assume that anybody who looked at the listing once they got in there would realize that they probably would just assume they were taken to the wrong listing, that the link was incorrect because it is so far removed from what is in that description. But that is that's not good. And again, how hard should that be? The eBay AI, which I rant on all the time for product descriptions, essentially just takes the exact things that you have put in your title and in your item specifics and then generates a paragraph, which I don't particularly care for, but at least it contains the correct information from the actual information that you put into the listing to begin with. That is not the case here. I don't know if this was a one-time issue or if this is pretty common, but this particular ad was nowhere near correct. You go to the actual listing, of course, none of that information. That sentence does not appear anywhere on the page. The seller does not mention anything about racing decals or stickers in either the description or the item specifics. So this is another one of those things where maybe not ready for prime time. They're trying to roll it out. They're trying to get these ads onto Facebook Marketplace, but the eBay AI is having some problems. Let me know if you've seen anything like this in the wild. I've not yet seen any myself while I'm on Facebook Marketplace, but they are starting to pop up with apparently some limited amounts of accuracy. eBay is expanding payment capabilities in partnership with checkout.com. They announced this last week, a strategic partnership with checkout.com to enhance payment acquiring capabilities and expand checkout options for buyers on the platform. The collaboration is designed to provide a more seamless commerce experience for shoppers on eBay with checkout.com's technology, data, and global acquiring expertise, helping eBay maximize payment acceptance. Checkout.com's local acquiring capabilities in over 50 countries and support for more than 150 currencies could help enable eBay to offer localized payments options, which would reduce cross-border charges and foreign exchange costs for both buyers and sellers. So this could be that's probably not going to be a big win for any individual seller, but for eBay overall, this is probably a really good pickup, assuming that they can integrate the technology, which is maybe a big leap, but nonetheless, their advanced technology, data analytics, and acquiring expertise will help That looks like what I just read. I'm going to skip that. eBay, they said, operates at a significant global scale, and our customers value speed, convenience, and safety while shopping on our marketplace, said the VP GM of Global Payments and Financial Services, Evriti Kanduri Mittal, in the company's press release. The strategic partnership with Checkout.com enables us to continue delivering fast, reliable, and frictionless payment experiences to millions of customers globally. The addition of Checkout.com to our partnership ecosystem highlights our continued commitment toward accelerating customer and business growth through uniquely eBay payments and financial services. So there you go. That is potentially a really big get for eBay to help with their payment processing since they've taken that over. Anything that they can do to streamline that, particularly in markets that are not native to eBay, would probably be really super helpful. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought of any of that. I always appreciate what you guys have to say about it. If you got something from that segment, please do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button. Let the YouTube algorithm know this was a good use of your time. Speaking of good use of time, I had a really good week last week. Let's get into this what sold. If you follow me over on Instagram, you know on my Saturday recap, I sold 142 listings last week, which was a bunch. That was really, really a lot. I'll give myself a round of applause for that. Best week I have had so far this year. There were a couple of particular sales, which we will cover in this recap, which strongly contributed to that overall number. But it was a good week overall. Sales on all 4 platforms, Mercari, Etsy, some stuff over on Whatnot, and again, a pretty big week over on eBay. This first item, an old book from 1952, Otho Winger by V.F. Schwamm, published by the Brethren Publishing House, an illustrated hardcover in its dust jacket, signed by the author. I've had this goes back again to the 15,000 book purchase from a couple of summers ago. So this was on sale for $22.49. It got a watcher. I sent out an offer and ultimately sold this for $20.24 plus shipping. I paid $4.14 in fees, $1.90 for the promoted listing fee. Cost of goods sold from that big lot was just 4 cents. So net profit on this book, $14.16. I did sit on it for coming up on 2 years, but made a little over $14 on it. This one I've not had all that long. This was part of a big lot of books that I bought late last fall. A lot of medical books and a lot of Korean language books, and I'm wading through those slowly but surely. I listed this last week and sold it. The Yonhap Yearbook 1995, a Korean language illustrated book from Yonhap Communication, a hardcover from 1995, all in Korean. Really interesting piece. Some of these Korean books have been really, really good for me. This one, I could not find really anything like it on eBay or anywhere else. So I originally ran this for a week at an auction at a $19.99 start and did not get any action on it. So when I relisted it, I put it at $24.99 with a best offer acceptable of $20. It almost immediately got a watcher. I sent out an offer and sold this for $21.24 plus shipping. Media rate shipping was $8.38. This was a really big, heavy book. Buyer's total was $32.51. I paid $4.88 in fees, $2.31 for the promoted listing fee. I did ship this by Ground Advantage because it was cheaper, $7.21. This was part of a big lot, again, of books that I bought for roughly 38 cents a piece. In bulk, my net profit after all the fees, $14.84. Another one on eBay. This was from a big lot of textbooks and science books that I picked up, maybe 2 months ago. Physical Geography Laboratory Manual by R.M. Basile from 1966. Illustrated spiral bound from the William C. Brown Book Company. Listed for $27.99. Again, got a watcher. I sent out an offer and sold for $23.79 plus shipping. I paid $4.83 in fees, $4.63 to ship. I overestimated the weight on this one by a little bit. I was off by about a half an ounce, so the buyer paid a little too much in shipping. Cost of goods sold just 50 cents. Net profit on this book, 1921. This was a laboratory manual for an old geography course from the 1960s. I talk about these old textbooks and workbooks pretty frequently on this channel. I am always interested in those, and when I find them, I almost always pick them up. Moving over to Etsy, the Book of American Trademarks, Volume 1, a hardcover by David E. Carter. You may recall, I believe I sold Volume 2 of this several months ago. This buyer up in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, purchased Volume 1 this week. Price $24.99. They paid $27.92 in shipping, so more in shipping than they paid for the book. Their total in American dollars, $55.82. I paid $5.35 in fees. My shipping was $27.92. Cost of goods sold was $1. I picked this up at an estate sale probably about a year ago. Not long enough ago that this was on sale, but nonetheless, pretty good flip. Net profit, $18.64. Another one on eBay. This was from the 650 odd book lot from late last fall that had a lot of climate and meteorology books in it. This one was Jetstream Meteorology by Elmer Reiter from 1962, a second printing, published by the University of Chicago, illustrated hardcover in really nice condition. Again, cost of goods sold 50 cents. This sold for $34.99 plus shipping. Fees were $6.51, $3.15 for the promoted listing fee, 50-cent cost of goods sold. Net profit on this one, $24.83. These old meteorology books have done really, really well for me. They have pretty consistently been in the kind of 15 to 40 odd dollar range, so they're probably ones to kind of be on the lookout for. A CD, a Christmas CD, oddly enough, in the middle of April. This is Santa's Got a GTO, Rodney on the Rock, Bingenheimer Christmas CD by K-Rock. Holiday CD, new and sealed. This is really fairly rare and hard to find. This was part of the big 8,300 CD lot from probably 4 summers ago. I had 2 of these. One sold a couple of Christmases ago. This one now has finally sold. This was on sale. I think it was probably like 40% off, but still sold for $35.99 plus shipping. I paid $6.37 in fees. Cost of goods sold was less than 4 cents, but on here it just says 4 cents. Total cost to me $13.74. Net profit on this CD $29.58. Again, like I talked about when I was on Cat the Nurse Flipper show last week, I don't mind these long tail items. I've got the space. I've got the wherewithal to store them. The money was long ago made on this lot. So sitting on this for what may seem like an excessive amount of time to net nearly $30 out of it is a deal I will take day after day. Another old book, this one from 1859. The Works of Flavius Josephus, the Learned and Authentic by William Whiston, leather hardcover in, considering the age of this book, was in actually pretty good condition. A little bit of cracking of the leather, but the binding was solid. Pages had a little bit of the tanning and the foxing as you would expect, but again, pretty nice for a book from 1859. Had it listed for $59.99 or best offer. Received an offer of $50, which I went ahead and took. I paid $8.69 in fees, $4.27 for promoted listing fee. This did ship media mail for just $6.13. Cost of goods sold, part of a big lot. Again, 50 cents on this. Net profit, $36.54. Old religious books. The Works of Josephus, even newer editions of this can be pretty good. So if you're out and about and you see these, they're probably worth taking a look at. Here's a nice sale. This one, 9 items in this. These were teacher volumes of math textbooks. I was at an estate sale last summer. There was a whole table full of mathematics literature, textbooks and workbooks and little booklets on how to teach math and so on. They were 25 cents a piece. So I just scooped them all up and put them in my bin and bought them all. This was an interesting one because in the middle of the night, I got a message from a buyer asking if I did combined shipping because they were interested in a couple of these. I, of course, was sound asleep because it was in the middle of the night. And before I could even wake up and respond to that message, someone else swooped in and bought all of these. So, really interesting sale. There were 8 of these booklets from Topics in Mathematics for Elementary School Teachers. It was books 1, 2, 8, 9, 6, 15, 10, and 14. That was 8 of the 9. And then there was another booklet, Mathematical Thinking Experiences in Mathematical Discovery, number 6. These were all from kind of the 1970s era. Again, 25 cents a piece for these. This buyer bought 9 of them for a total of $74.31 plus shipping. Really nice sale. They paid a total of $85.29. I paid $11.71 in fees, $5.84 for the promoted listing fee. These did ship for a little bit less because eBay had miscalculated the combined shipping, $6.13 versus $7.65 that was paid by the buyer. Cost of goods sold, again, just $2.25 for these, 25 cents a piece. Good deal. My total cost $29.26, leading to a net profit of $56.03. Had these less than a year. Again, at $0.25 a piece. These are the kind of things I will snap up. I'll list them, and these were valuable enough that I listed them all individually. I have sold a couple of these previously, one here, one there, and now these are all gone and to one buyer. Very cool. And here's we're going to call it the flip of the week, but it's probably the flip of the year, to be fair. You may recall several months ago, it was probably late last year, I had a buyer that bought a bunch of the Ohio Jurisprudence second edition hardcover bound legal books from the 1950s through the 1970s. I think he bought maybe 8 in one lot and 6 in another. On a deal. He made an offer, which I accepted at that time. And I had sent him a message around Christmas time saying I still had a bunch of these. And if he was interested in any more, if he'd let me know, we'd work something out. And I didn't hear from him until this week when I got a message that said, it looks like you have 43 of these Ohio jurisprudence books left. I would like to buy them all. He said, what kind of a deal could you give me? So I ran some math, and I initially sent him a message saying I would do $500 for the remaining 43 of these. And he wanted to do local pickup. He's from the Northern Ohio area. He was going to be down here for some other business. He wanted to do local pickup, which I normally don't do. But because of the size and the weight of these, it made sense. These are probably 4 to 6 pounds a piece. So the cost of shipping was really prohibitive. Since he was going to be in the area, I agreed to do that. He sent me a message back saying that was probably a little more than he was hoping for, but would I do 400? And I'm like, I'm into these books for like 91 or 92 cents a piece. I think I can do that. So I agreed to 43. He cleaned me out. He now owns all of the Ohio jurisprudence books that I had with this last purchase of 43 of these books for $400. My fees, $65.58. I did create a custom listing. I had 43 individual listings, which I ended up ending and created just one new listing for this custom book lot. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, $65.58 I paid in fees. $39.56 ended up being my total cost of goods sold on these. So this sale netted me $294.86. That, my friends, is a week maker. Was very happy to get that done. And obviously, that was a big contributor to the 142 listings that sold last week. Without that sale, it would still be a pretty good week, still right close to 100 listings across 4 platforms. But that one definitely made the week a lot more fun. Let me know in the comments below what your best sale of the week was. I always am curious what other people are doing and what kind of money y'all are making out there. So let me know in the comments down below. How was your week? I hope it was fantastic. I hope you got something out of this episode. If you did, again, please do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button. If you're listening over on Spotify, you can leave a review as well. I would appreciate that. If you're not currently a follower of the podcast or a subscriber to the YouTube channel or a member of the YouTube channel and you'd like to get these podcasts early, please consider doing one of those three things. For those of you who are members, you're going to get this before Easter, so happy Easter. For the rest of you, you're going to get it after Easter, but still, happy Easter. And now it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. You have been listening to the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next time.